So I just saw a post that was, why is there a stigma around taking GLP-1 medication more than taking any other drug on a regular basis? And I just want to talk about it for a minute because I think for me, there's not a stigma. There's not. My concerns come in with the way the drug is being abused and the way it was designed from the beginning to be abused. And we're going to talk about that. I think that was pushed specifically by the companies intentionally to make people addicted and dependent to the drug. Now, here's the problem. A drug, even if we look at the cholesterol studies, right? The medication was designed to be used for 12 weeks at a time at low doses to create a big impact and then be taken away. That's how the drug was designed to be used. The same thing is true of a PPI. They were never meant for long-term use. A GLP-1 should never be meant for long-term use. Now, all of that said, there are people who will be genetically predisposed to being deficient in GLP-1 and leptin. Leptin is that hormone that tells your body, hey, we're full, please stop feeding us. So if you're deficient in leptin, you could have an overeating disorder, right? Because you can't tell the signal from your brain to your stomach to your brain. It doesn't occur to tell you to stop eating. If you look at things like Ozempic from the 90s and early 2000s, Trulicity and Jardiance, the doses that were given that they were seeing weight loss, the reason they started studying them for weight loss, were tiny doses. Tiny. They were, on average, 1/10 of what you saw in the pens that were available for use when these hit the market and became so big. And I believe they did that by design to make people both addicted and dependent. And the addiction is, oh, I can eat whatever I want and not have to do anything and not have to exercise and lose weight. That's the addiction, right? The dependency is now, we know if you come off this drug within 6 months, you gain the weight back. And you can look at comments throughout all of these GLP-1 posts about people who said within a month I had gained back 20 pounds. So that's not just me saying that. They have made you dependent on it because they overdosed you in the beginning. So there's a woman, Dr. Tina Moore, who taught a class. I took the class. I had some concerns before I took her class. I wanted to be more educated. I took the class. And what she said made a lot of sense. However, that's not what the dosing was that came out in these pens. Signs of malnutrition. And yes, this can also be signs of hormone shift, but signs of malnutrition. Your nails stop growing, your hair starts falling out, it stops growing, and your skin becomes dull and lifeless. Sound familiar? Ask anyone on a GLP-1 journey. How soon was it when you started losing your hair? It's because the dose is too high and you're losing the weight too quickly and you're not eating enough and you're not taking the right supplements to keep your body nourished. There's a lack of education around nourishing your body, period. You still need to be drinking enough water because flushing out fat is very stressful on your body. Very stressful. So in my program for weight loss that I've been doing with people since 2014, where their hair doesn't fall out and their gallbladder doesn't get ruined and doesn't need to be surgically removed from their body, I ask them to get 90 ounces of water a day with some electrolytes. Why do I do that? Because it's very stressful on the liver and the kidneys to process all of that fat. And that's because that fat stored on your body that's in excess stores a crap ton of toxins. So the other thing is the malnutrition in general, right? I'm not hungry, so I'm not eating. And I've had this conversation with several women. I have had 20 and 30-year-olds get told they are in menopause after being on these medications for other things, like one of them for alcohol addiction, one of them for a mild drug addiction. And when I asked them to do their food log, they were averaging 300 to 400 calories a day. You cannot grow a human if you're only eating 300 to 400 calories a day, period. Which means that your body will stop doing the other things it would need to do in order to make sure you can get pregnant. So, in general terms, you don't want to weigh your food. it would be better for you because you could say for sure, no, this is exactly what I'm getting. But if you're working with a provider and you're using a GLP-1 and you are not required to talk about your food log for the week, they are doing you a disservice, period. If they are not asking you to submit an exercise log for the week, they are doing you a disservice, period. General terms, protein, make a fist. Your protein should be the size of your fist, 3 meals a day. Your vegetables should be the size of your hand, 3 meals a day. Your starch, so your rice, your white potato, your bread, your fruit, should be the size of the center of your palm, 3 times a day. Don't snack in between. After each one of those meals, go for a 10-minute walk. 3 days a week, lift weights, buy resistance bands, I don't care what it is. Make sure it strains the muscle to the point that you end up a little bit sore, but still functional. And I don't know if you caught that at the beginning, but I have trouble with people being on drugs that are only studied for certain amounts of time and only show efficacy for certain amounts of time, and then they stay on them forever. And the truth is, even in the bro science world, they know that you need to cycle on and off peptides so you don't become resistant to them. And the truth is, you can develop a GLP-1 resistance, and then you're fucked. I mean, knowing that we're seeing this, where people who come off the medication, and the literature has proved it out. You come off the medication, within 6 months, you've gained all the weight back. Knowing that you see this in the comments of, yeah, I came off of it for a month and gained 20 pounds back. Knowing that they've created a dependency. So what should happen is that none of this should be in a pen. You should be getting it from a compounding pharmacy, and the compounding pharmacy should be giving you the lowest possible dose that has ever shown efficacy, which, if you go back and look at the studies from the 90s and the early 2000s, is pretty low. It's really freaking low. It's not what you're getting in one of the pens. And even the studies that they're doing now with retatrutide, I think the reason for the extreme depression that people experience as a side effect, and it's extreme, I think the reason for the extreme skin sensitivity that feels like you have a sunburn that's burning you from the inside out. And I think that the other issues of not being able to find any pleasure and the increase in erectile dysfunction proven out in this study has to do with the fact that the dose is too high. That is not the minimal dose to see an effect. Throughout time, all of the studies show that organ preservation, weight loss between 2 to 4 pounds a week is what's healthy. 2 to 4 pounds a week. So people losing 10, 15, 20 pounds in a week, that's not really that healthy. And that's why we're seeing so many issues pop up. One of the jobs of the liver is to produce bile. One of the jobs of the liver is to cleanse the bile and place it back in the gallbladder for release during digestion. If the liver is so busy filtering out toxins from your fat cells that it has stored there because it was too toxic in the first place, so that it's trying to save your life, clean production of bile becomes lowest thing on the totem pole because saving your life becomes more important. If you decide that you want to go on a GLP-1 journey, and even on your GLP-1 journey, you should be doing a liver cleanse twice a year, period. Because you're going to stress out your liver if you've got more than 40 pounds to lose. If you want to work with somebody that's been helping people without GLP-1s lose somewhere between 20 and 40 pounds in 6 weeks, there's a link below. And I'm not saying we can't work with your GLP-1 medication. I'm just saying we're going to make sure you do it right so that you don't end up losing any organs, your hair doesn't all fall out, and you don't end up with severe malnutrition. Ladies, if you're over 35, it gets really hard to put that muscle back on if you're not nourished well enough. And frailty is not cute.